Hi, my name is Rachel Beesley of Equine Coaching. I'm an equine intuitive. For those of you that don't know me, I guess you know that from the intro to the call. But to explain why I call myself an equine intuitive is essentially because I can connect with horses that are with us as well as those that are past. And I also often connect nowadays with people's cats and their dogs. I sometimes have a kind of group call, as it were, with the whole kind of extended family. I appreciate that it's a little out there for many people. I had a client the other day that said it was a bit bonkers, really, and I get that. I do. I guess if someone had said to me 10 years ago when I was working in the corporate world that I would be speaking with horses, I too would have raised an eyebrow, and yet here I am. I find myself having the most fascinating conversations with them. And it genuinely is an honour to be their voice and to be that conduit really between them and their person. There's nothing like finding something that completely fulfills you really and helps other people and makes a difference in the process. So, as you can possibly tell, I can chat quite a bit, and what I wanted to do is be mindful of the time. You guys have committed potentially half an hour to finding out a bit more about what I do and to potentially hear from your horse. So I kind of want to make sure that I stay within that time praying for you guys. And what I wanted to offer out there is that if you have any questions about my background, how I find myself here, my experience, by all means pop them on the thread, and then in between each of the read-ins then I can kind of pick those up and I can answer those. I thought that might be the best way for it to be as interactive as possible. And what I wanted to do really today is demonstrate what's possible, because I understand the natural skepticism, and I think that's healthy actually, unless you've experienced an animal communicator and you've had that evidence yourself. As I said before, it's a little bit unusual. I have a number of clients that maybe even speak to their own horses, but they come to me for that extra layer of understanding, the deeper layer of understanding. So I'm not sure your backgrounds and why you've joined the call, but I guess it's because you have an openness and potentially a bit of a fascination in the way that I did and I do, and also that you care deeply about your horse and your connection with them is incredibly important to you. So I would hope that there would be a resonance for you with this call. I can see everyone sort of saying hello. Hi everyone, it's so nice to see you guys and know that you've made it onto the call. And we're going well without any technical issues, so long may that continue. Okay, the only other thing actually to add is that I do plan to share an offer as well at the end of the call, because I'm aware that you kind of join this, don't you, with real excitement about the fact it might be your horse, and if I haven't been able to choose them, then I wanted to be able to extend something really to enable you to say yes and to follow through in that way. So, how I chose the three. I was going to wuss it a little bit, if I'm honest, because the last time I did calls like this, about a year ago, I found myself inadvertently committing to reading for 10 horses, because I'd gone and got their photographs printed and then realised actually there was a little bit of a contract there really, and I had to kind of follow through. So it turned into like an epic 4-night series of different videos. And so this time what I thought I would do is that I would screen with my finger. I always use my phone when I'm on readings and I have the photos there. So I just thought I'll open up the thread, I'll screen, make sure that actually works. Hi everyone. And then I will close my eyes and I will pick one at random and I will do it that way. And actually this is how it happened with the first person. So the first horse that I called, or who called to me really, was Darcy. So Darcy is Penny Butts. Are you on the live stream this evening, Penny? What was interesting about Darcy is she, as soon as I saw, and actually I go to say she, and I think it's actually he because it's spelled D-A-R-C-Y. There's just quite a bit of a feminine energy to her. So I should explain, what I did yesterday is that I connected with them last night. and I wanted to give them 5 minutes. Is never enough, so it always kind of lent itself more to sort of 7, maybe a bit more. And then I had time this evening to connect again and just see if there's anything else that they wish to share. And what was interesting with Darcy last night, and also more so this evening actually, is that she essentially, Penny, negotiated for a private reading for you. So this evening more so I could feel her nervousness. So what I would, and I have done in the past, is I would have photos of all the horses, but what with the snow I wasn't able to get out and get them. So what I've done is I've gone for plan B, and I've put them on my Kindle Fire so I can hold them up and show them to you, so at least you know which horse I'm speaking about. But this evening Darcy didn't even want me to do that. She didn't want me to show her photo to everyone. And I guess it's a bit like if you were to go along to something public. I mean, Facebook doesn't feel so public because you're in the comfort of your own home potentially, or your car, or wherever you may be. But there was definitely a feeling from her that she didn't want to kind of be shown to everyone and to have our conversation. So what I'm going to do, Penny, and for the benefit of everyone, is just share the kind of things, because this is how we got to this place. So I essentially looked at her photo, and I heard her say, "I knew you'd choose me," and I heard the words, "Hello, sweet pea," and I was taken to the eyes and ears, the ears first and then the eyes. And in the eyes I had this sense that she wasn't concerned. She was just sort of looking back and saying, "Can you see me?" And I was aware of the colouring of her face. And it was at that point that she said actually that she wants to talk to her mum, although she's nervous, and could we do it as a private reading? And at that point, in the past, I did do one private reading the last time I did these. For that very reason, I went to do a very, very kind of let's just go with the readings in the moment, and I will just pull up their photo in the very similar way that I do when I do private calls, and read for them kind of instantaneously. And I found this time last year it did not flow in the way that I thought it would do. I really wanted to give you kind of as the audience a kind of a genuine appreciation of what it's like to have a private reading with me. And I found that it was even more stilted doing it that way. And what had come out of it was the first horse that I tried to do this with, it just didn't feel right. And I've kind of learned nowadays never to push through that. And so I kind of honoured that and said, look, I think I need to do these offline, and then I'll come back tomorrow night and I'll share them. And it turned out that that particular horse actually wanted a private reading, and what she wanted to share, there was nothing bad actually about what she wanted to share, and that's something I wanted to stress, and this is why I'm sharing this story with you tonight. I think sometimes people have a reservation about having a reading because they think that, you know, something bad is going to be conveyed, and it never is. You know, they are always so incredibly constructive if they've got any kind of feedback to give, and usually there's just a whole lot of love and appreciation, and then a lot of other information that gets shared. And in that particular case, what I did is I did a private video and I sent it to the person, but I was really appreciative retrospectively that that was why, you know, you just sometimes don't know, do you, in the moment what's kind of unfolding, and that's what happened. And then last night with Darcy, she then negotiated with me, and I said, well, okay, it didn't feel right to do a video one. She actually wanted me, Penny, to have you on the phone so I could hear your voice. So I was like, okay, well that kind of wasn't what I'd set out to do. And she was like, and I share all of this because I wonder whether this is actually her personality, and she's up for negotiating. I can see Barbara's mentioning Catherine and Darcy. I think it was Penny Butts Darcy, Barbara. And so I found myself offering to Penny a 15-minute private call. So I don't know, Penny, where you are based, whether you're in the UK like myself or whether you're overseas, but let's see if we can make that happen, because I think that will enable her to really relax, and then we can have a chat that way as well. Okay, so I hope that was clear. I'm aware that there's a number of things kind of popping up, so just bear with me. I'm just going to see what's kind of happening on the thread. and then I can move on to the second horse. So just lots of hellos. Carrie saying, I do exactly the same. It would be amazing to see someone else work and how they work. This is the thing, actually. I started out on an intro weekend and then discovered that I could connect with just incredible accuracy and depth of information. And oh, I'm doing all sorts. Hang on, let me bring that back. And then you don't. So I did that intro weekend, and then I loved how the lady taught and her syllabus for her foundation in animal communication studies, her diploma. So I studied that as well. So apart from those ladies, I haven't experienced another animal communicator and how they work. So it's always interesting, isn't it? So thank you for joining, Carrie. And good vibes. Thank you, Susan or Suzanne. Okay, so there's no other questions. So the second horse that I connected with, so I said earlier that I connected with Darcy randomly. Merlin is Joanne Pollux, and Joanne, or is it Joan? Actually, there's not an E on the end. It's Joann, Joan. She was the first lady to share her photo of her horse, and then it was actually on a share that I had done, and then I posted it myself on the event thread. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, really, because it, you know, the post had been up for a little while and she was the very first person, so I thought actually that deserves a bit of recognition. So I can show you a picture of Merlin, who is utterly stunning. Let's have a look at Merlin. So you have something else other than myself to look at. So here we are. So the thing about it being on a Kindle and not as a photo, there's a bit of reflection. I tried this out earlier, but hopefully you can see him. There we go. So this is Merlin. And so with Merlin, I should explain as well, actually, I like to work really cleanly, and by that I mean I like to just capture whatever words that they use and however I receive the information. And for me, it's very much thought-based, so it's like hearing a running kind of dialogue of thoughts. And I also occasionally get visuals, and I can be taken to certain memories. And I say clean because I just want to give it without censoring it or cherry picking information. Obviously on a Facebook Live I have to use some discernment if anything were to come up that I wasn't sure about sharing. But when it's a private reading, I literally connect with the horse 5 minutes prior to the call. The person rings me, and then I always ask, look, can the horse have the ground, the first part of the call? Because this might be the first time that they have ever been given their voice in this way, and I just want them to have that opportunity to speak. I try not to get involved. I don't try to ask any questions at the beginning. Sometimes they can give so much information that I want to almost get to a solution for them. I think that can be people's natural tendency, and I definitely like to move in that way, and I have to step myself back and kind of think, just give the horse space to just go wherever they want to. I think it's a little like us, sometimes, and it's I guess my coaching background, it's invaluable to have some space to just think aloud and get how you feel and think out there, and then you can move forward in terms of how you might want to do things differently or what could change. But sometimes it's about just being heard, and so I will very cleanly just relay the information, and I ask, at the beginning I kind of want at least kind of 10 or 15 minutes so that the horse can kind of cover what they wish to, and then of course the owner gets to feedback for me. And I would hope that if the owners are on the live stream, if you could feedback, that would be brilliant. If there are things that you want to share with me privately, then do message me privately, but if there's feedback that you can give on the call, which would be brilliant for other people listening, just because it's great for them to see that the information is validated, and that in essence I am able to connect, and that horses can speak in this way to people. So yes, without further ado then, let me explain how Merlin chose to share things. So when I looked at his photo, my eyes were taken to his right front leg and to his hoof in particular, and the coronary band, and I heard in my head muffin top of hair and I thought that's That's an interesting expression for the hair that goes over his coronary band, but that was the words muffin top. And it felt like he was striding towards me, and you can see that he is obviously striding in the photo. But with the stride came a kind of laid back swagger, and I couldn't help but feel his humour and his charm. I mean, I can't, as I'm thinking about him now, I just couldn't help but smile in the moment, and I was like, wow, you could sense that kind of character. And I heard in my head, I'm coming to see you. And then I heard, I'll put you under my spell. And the song, I'll put a spell on you and you're mine, started to play in my mind. And at the time, I saw a lady in my head, and I was thinking of Maya Angelou, and I thought, no, she's the writer, she's not the singer. But then I realised that the lady that I was seeing in my mind it's a UK TV news presenter called Moira Stewart. I actually looked her up after The Connection because I remember her being called Moira, but I didn't know her surname off the top of my head. And then what I did is I Google searched the song I'll Put a Spell on You, and actually the original singer of that is a gentleman called Jay Hawkins, and I will share later on the feed. I did a screenshot of both because they actually look really quite similar, so for me that was validation of all of that information. And this is kind of the beauty of the sessions. I don't know how this information will make sense to Joan, but I don't censor it out because it may make complete sense to her. It might be her favourite song, there might be all sorts going on there, so I just share the information even if it doesn't really make sense. And I obviously check in with the person at a certain point, but I just go with the flow. It makes me think of an example where I had a call with somebody and I was relaying all this information, and I said afterwards, does that make sense to you? And she said should was a horse, and it was another horse that her horse was then commenting on, and it made complete sense to her, so I was like, hallelujah. But that's what I mean about cleanness. I just give it and get out of the way. So yeah, I heard, I'll put you under my spell, I'll put a spell on you and you're mine, and saw that lady and thought, he is stunning. And there was a sense that from afar he could be mistaken for a mare or a lady. They weren't the right words, but obviously not a gelding or stallion, you know, that because of the greyness and almost the beauty of him, he could be taken for not being male. And yet once you got close to him, there was no mistaking his presence. And I wrote here, no mistaking his sheer presence once you were in his energy in your space. And I had a sense of him exploring a person, and I sensed it possibly was Joan, so that he would be cheekily but gently probing the upper body for treats. And I heard the words, you know you want to, and they're mine. And then I was taken with the sense of the thickness of his coat. So I could see in my mind's eye a hand running all the way along his kind of back, or lower back, and up over his rump. And there was a delight in the thickness of his fur. And as I thought of this, and I could visualise this happening, it was almost like he gave a kind of because I'm worth it mane flick as well. And I heard the words stallion in the making, and I myself thought, well, that's a bit odd because they don't start out, you start out of it as that, don't you, and then things change. So, but those were definitely the order of the words, stallion in the making. And I had a sense then that I wanted to play and like move his forelock away from his eyes, and I had a sense of his hand over his lower nose, just above his muzzle, and like a gentle capping. And so that was last night. Just doing some questions. I will come to the questions afterwards. Then this evening, I actually woke up this morning inspired by the idea of why don't I ask each horse if they have a question for their person, and I thought this was a great idea. And I went to ask him this, and he told me I was interrupting him and he wanted to continue. So I connected with him this evening, probably about an hour or so before the live video, and I had a sense that he, and I say you and he, so I'm meaning Joan here, that you and he have really great fun. I mean, like laugh until you cry or almost cry, and there's a sense that it bubbles up around him. and I put here, yes, so you can't, you know how some people just have contagious energy, and the sense is that he has this presence to him that when you're with him, this laughter just bubbles up, this real sense of fun bubbles up. And it says here, you need each other, and he helps you not take life too seriously. And then I heard a phrase, and I couldn't quite make it out. Maybe he is speaking to me in Spanish, and I don't understand Spanish. I know nada, and it's because it sounded like come nada de something. And maybe clocking the fact that I had no idea what he was saying, he then said, "We are nothing and everything." And I linked that to him saying, you know, not to take life so seriously. He was just sort of saying, we are nothing, and I think he meant in the scheme of things, and yet we are also everything. And at that point, I thought, the reason I was connecting tonight was to ask him a question, and he was like, don't interrupt me at the moment. I mean, he kind of he at that point said that he was aware, because I said, I'm aware of time, and he said, yes, I know, but this is my time, so let me follow through. And I think that's important to say. So I mentioned it earlier, I try not to have an agenda at all, and I try to just go in and let them share whatever they want to. And then of course there'll be a natural point of our conversation where the owner, the person, will have questions for them, and then it gets really interactive and we go backwards and forwards with information. But to start with, I just let them go with what is really. And so the other thing he wanted to talk about is, I kept hearing Luna in my head, and I know a couple of dogs. I know a real dog, and I know a toy dog now that's been named Luna. So I thought, is that what that's about? And then he said, no, I do mean Luna and the moon cycles. And I heard the words temptress of the night. And I actually wrote north, and he corrected me and he was like, no. He's saying, I'm talking about Luna, I'm talking about the moon. It is temptress of the night. And this is what I mean about his humour. He was just really, you know, there was no scolding in it at all, but he was just joking with me. So it's temptress of the night, and he was talking about the powerful tides and ebbs and flows of the moon, essentially, and the cycles of that. And he was saying its influence on our beings, so not horses as such, but he was referring to its influence on humans and our emotions and the currents and the ebbs and flows of that. So he was saying, Joan, with this, if you don't already pay attention to the moons, you know, when we have the full moons and the cycles, and their influence, perhaps start to do so. So he said, you just make a quick note. I didn't get a sense that perhaps you'd want to journal, but he was like, a quick note, just so you can see a pattern looking back retrospectively over time. And this is why I also do readings like this on a live video, because I want to demonstrate the kind of things they cover, and I think they sometimes share wisdom, really, that it could kind of be applicable to everyone. Sometimes it's useful to have a sense of what might be influencing our moods, and sometimes why they're so changeable. And for Joan, potentially, he's suggesting that that there might be a link to the moons. Oh yeah, and then when I first connected this evening, as a side note, I could hear Kumbaya in my head, and I was like, what's the Kumbaya about? And then I had a link to my own childhood and being in church, and that fact that, you know, when you know, it's not appropriate to laugh in church, or it wasn't back in my day, and the more you tried to hold it in, the more you know, your shoulders would shake, and you might even potentially snort with laughter, and it all just became a bit of a game over. And that was where he led me in to say that you and he just had really great fun together. So sorry, I kind of missed that note. And he started to close at this point, because I did sort of say, I do need to close, because I do want to check in with the others before and get myself ready for the live call. And he said, I want more time. And I was like, yes, okay. So I said, is there a specific question though? And he said, let this be enough. And he said, for now, and he also said, encourage her to have a session. And then he said to me, and I'm just sharing this candidly because I think it's just important to reflect his nature and also his message. And he was saying to me that I needed to get over not wishing to be salesy in any way, because I essentially have a service, and he didn't use those words, he said, you are horse's voice. And actually you can do so much by being that, so let's let's stop shying away from it and just be really open about what you can do and what you can offer people. And he said, you know, you've given her enough information to think, actually, maybe I want more, maybe I want to kind of continue the conversation. So I took that and I thanked him very much. And because he was saying, look, this is just, he said, look, you haven't been able to do me justice. He's referring to himself. And he also said, look, it's the tip of the iceberg. So I was like, yeah, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate he's got far more to say. And he said, as a bit of encouragement, he kind of gave me a picture of him, like off he went cantering and kind of galloping, and he kind of knows I kind of love, that's my dream of just being able to be such a good rider that I can go out hacking in the summer and just have a really good time. And he said, let's frolic together and have a falor, was his word. So that was Merlin, and I'm going to check now whether Joan managed to make it onto the call, and then some of the questions. I don't think she has. So Joan, when you do listen back, if you could just kind of comment on the thread for people, that would be really, really lovely, just to say, look, that is his personality, or whatever your feedback may be. I've kind of learned that it's not about whether I'm right or wrong, you know, I just have to kind of deliver the information, but it's great for people that have joined the call just to have that feedback, really. Great. Okay, let me see. I almost don't want to put him aside. There he is. He's going to have to go. Thank you. And let's see what questions I have before I move on to the third and final horse of this evening. Rebecca, may I ask, when a horse communicates with you, do you hear them in English or in pictures? So you may have heard me cover this earlier, but I'm happy to say I hear them in English. Sometimes they'll give me phrases like "que sera, sera" in French because I know some French. They'll give me information that I can kind of relate to, or sometimes I had one horse in particular actually that was covering so much ground. It was incredible, and he told me off because he was saying that I was trying to summarize his words. I would kind of recap because I just thought, God, there's so much here, perhaps we should recap and try to just, and he sort of, and it was to the benefit of his person and also myself, and done very kindly, but he actually said to me, this is human nature, you know, we try to make things smaller so that we can understand things, you know, if things go a bit too far we step it back a little bit and make it smaller. And he was just saying to me, do not try to summarize my words so that I could, actually he was saying so that I could justify my intellectual ability to keep up with him, and also to make myself feel comfortable with the information. And he was saying that when we feel uncomfortable, it's our desire to shrink back and kind of get that safety back. And he was actually encouraging me and the person just to really engage in that space of uncertainty and allow yourself to be uncomfortable, because from that place all sorts of potential occurs in terms of your understanding of things, the way you could then kind of bring things together and kind of create a new perspective or understanding. And I share that because I just think it's brilliant wisdom, and it's to answer your point in terms of how they can convey on different levels. So sometimes I don't really understand a lot of what they were saying, and this particular horse was kind of almost giving me a lecture about, I've had lectures on metaphysics as well, and they've had to kind of paste it with my understanding for me to kind of convey it on a level. I hope that answers. Yeah, sorry, Carrie. I just saw that she got excited thinking it was her Merlin. So there we are. Naomi, I'm only doing 3 this evening. I may do another one in due course, so I'll let you know. Sarah Jones, when you're communicating with the horse, can you tell the horse something the owner wants them to know, i.e. that everything is going to be okay? Absolutely. So I really believe that the horse has a sense of a lot of things that are going on, and I've had that demonstrated time and time again, to do things like, you know, why has my saddle been removed from the yard, to real insight into what's going on with their person at home, in their romantic relationships, in their career, across all sorts of situations. And to that end, when I mentioned earlier that I'm an equine intuitive, it's because I believe I connect both from an emotional level. You know, people talk about mind, don't they, body and spirit, and I believe that I can connect across all three, and so I can access the information they want to share across all of those different elements. And what happens, Sarah, is often that becomes part of the call. So I shared in my newsletter, actually, I read for a dog recently, and she was really fantastic in the fact that she was giving them very live feedback in person while I was obviously on the phone. And there was a point in the conversation where I said to them, she hears what you're suggesting, but she just needs time to say whether she's in or out, kind of thing. But she's absolutely hearing your point of view. And they were laughing because it was the first time in the call that she'd actually turned away and buried her head in a cushion. So they're like, we get that completely. And so they can. Sometimes my role is to, I guess, almost reiterate, reassure. They can often be confused. So having said all that I've just said, they can also have confusion around things that have happened, things that may be, things that are coming up. They can have a sense of things and change to come. You know, they might be aware that there's a move to happen, or they might just have real concerns for their person about things. So yes, I can absolutely help convey those, convey whatever the person wants to convey, and kind of strengthen that understanding between them both. Yeah. And I guess to also kind of explain, when often the person will be asking a question and I've got the answer before they finish the sentence, and I just have to kind of wait patiently for them to get there so I can give it. And I would hope it would come across, you know, I never guess. If I have a sense of something and it's not just a clear thought and I'm not just articulating it from the horse or the dog or the cat that I'm connecting with, I will always say whether I feel like I've got involved, and I'll just kind of signpost that for the person. Just lost the track of thought there. Yes, but yeah, I will never guess. And if I have a sense of something and I'm not quite sure, once I say it out loud, I either will feel it in my body and I can feel them kind of going, yep, you're on it, or no, you need to refine that because I didn't quite mean this, I meant that. So I can always trust the sense of that. Yeah. Oh, Carrie says we are everything and nothing because somos nada y todo. Free. Well, obviously not pronounced like that, but that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. Have you ever come up against a horse who won't talk to you? So I have come across, their personalities very much come across with me, so it's not like I get a free kind of pass and access to them. So the dog I just mentioned completely kind of put me through my paces at the beginning of the call. I had come highly recommended, but she told me that that wasn't enough in her mind because she was entrusting not only herself but her people to me in that call. And so until she was assured of my credentials, she was going to kind of just keep me going and give me something and then pull back and give me something. And I've had horses that maybe have been rescues that have gone through a lot who do not engage freely and like affectionately or openly with people, and I would have a sense of that in terms of how they would engage with me, and I've just had to kind of trust the process and the flow and then seen how it has gone with the person on the phone. They haven't out and outright said I'm not having a conversation with you. There's always been a desire there on a level. But it might be I might not have caught them at a great time, or you know, it's just fluid. But on the whole, whenever someone has had a call with me, we have covered a fair amount of ground. The only other thing I'm thinking of is when I did the equisentient coaching cards and I was connecting with the wild horses from their photos remotely. I would connect with some of them and they'd be like, thank you very much, but I'm not doing the cards. I don't have anything to say to you. And so in that instance, some of those horses said, no, I'm not wanting to be part of that, which I obviously respected. But when a person comes to me, there's a reason for it. I always have a sense of, and that's why I open myself up to cats and dogs. You know, horses are my absolute love, but I found that the cats and the dogs that have come and their people have come for a reason. So I kind of thought, look, just allow that flow and see how it goes. Oh, Joan is there. Can you ask Merlin if he was okay after our accident? Does he know how much I love him? It will be him before anyone. Okay. So I just need to get back into his energy, actually, because I'd kind of sort of said goodbye to him. And when you mentioned his accident, I kind of had a sense of quite a bit of emotion there. So if I may, where are we with time as well? Oh, we're already 9 o'clock. So what I'm going to do, Joan, just because of the sense of emotion there and the fact that I think there's probably quite a bit, I will connect with him separately, possibly not this afternoon, but by this weekend for you. I'm aware of snow and the fact of the impact of that on childcare. I've got 2 little ones. But this weekend I will ask him that question and I will come back to you personally, just because of what's in that question. Yeah? Okay. Thank you for coming on and asking. And so the last horse that I connected with is Poirot, I think is how you pronounce his name, Jenny Appleby. And I have a great picture of him as well. Let's bring him up so you guys can see who I'm talking about as well. Pressing the wrong side of my Kindle Fire. Here we go. So this is Poirot. Yeah? See, he's got this amazing tash going on. Yeah? Thanks, Carrie. There we go. So again, I connected with him last night and this evening. So the things that came through, when I looked at his picture, instantly I was taken with his moustache, so obviously it's down here for him. And I was thinking about Scottish dogs, so they flicked into my mind as a visual. And then I clocked his name and I thought, well, of course, because I could just imagine that he would like fiddle in contemplation with his moustache. You know how like Poirot does this, but I could see him doing this. And obviously as a horse, he doesn't have hands to do that. But it was just an image I could see. And his energy for me felt more serious. So I'd connected with him, you know, pretty much straight after Merlin. And whereas I was still feeling quite humorous from my a little interlude with Merlin, just because of his charming nature, with Poirot, I felt that his energy felt flatter and stiller. And as I thought of stiller and flatter, it was kind of thinking of, you know, like just a very kind of quiet pond, you know, that kind of the no ripples. And there was a sense of others' reactions to him, so that actually his I think, do you call it a moustache in horses? I'm not aware actually, but you know, all his hair underneath. It would, you know, it's actually, it wouldn't be a moustache, would it? It would be a like a goatee, I guess. That this had become almost his defining feature and the first thing that people interact with when they meet him. And he was always saying to me, who would he be without it? And I found myself stroking his blaze, and actually, but quite firmly actually, and I share this because these are the kind of things that maybe the person does, so this might be something, Jenny, that you do with him, and whether he quite likes it, but I can see myself like really quite firmly rubbing my hand, starting from the top down, and kind of moving his kind of fringe, his forelock out of the way, and his left eye, which is actually his right eye, but in the photo it looked like it's, you know, it's the left one that I looked at, and just had a real sense of his gentle energy, like a gentle boy was what I wrote here. And I heard the words, "What do you want to tell me? Whisper to my soul." And it was as if that's how he invites people. And I could see at that point someone, so facing him, and you'd be on his left shoulder, kind of almost moving in, and he would kind of look a little bit around to you. And I heard the words, "You can move heaven and earth if you wanted to." And then this evening I connected with him with a view to asking him the question. So having kind of learnt with Merlin, I kind of set a little bit with Poirot and just said, do you have a question for your person? And he then shared all of this, which again felt a bit reminiscent of how the horses shared with me in the cards. So this is what he shared, Jenny. What is it that you are seeking in me and in yourself? Give it room to grow, light for it to be gently seen to blossom, at its own pace, in its own way, and gander. I'm not sure what gander means, but it felt relevant to the pace. Find the beauty. If anyone knows what gander means, by all means pop it on there, because I didn't look it up, but it just came there. So let me just repeat that bit. Give it room to grow, light for it to be gently seen to blossom at its own pace, in its own way, and gander. Find the beauty that is within you and everything of creation. And by that I had a sense that he meant creation as in events and things that play out in your life and around you, as well as like physical items. You know, we can create carrots and vegetables and all those kind of things, but he's talking about the broader, bigger piece of creation too. Gander, go slowly. Thanks, Jane. Well, of course, that's why it's fitting. Thank you. Yes. And to glance at something. So yeah, to look at, to glance, to go slow. Yes. Brilliant. And then I heard the words, be still, breathe, be one. See me, see you. And then at that point, Lionel Richie kicked in. So you know that, and I'm not going to sing, but I don't know all the words. And what I had a sense of is that say me, say you, you know, in that song. And that he expressed at this point deep love and respect for you. And always was what he said. And then Lionel came back, and I think it might be the chorus then that came in. So you know when it kind of sort of says, you know, we're running in the night, just you and me, wild and free, playing in the shadows, just you and me until the morning light, I think is the word. So obviously it's a bit more of a romantic one. But that, I hope you know which song. I've been known to sing songs, and people have been like, I have no idea what you were singing, so that's why I'm refraining right now. But it is definitely, I'm sure, a Lionel Richie number. And that was how he ended. So I don't think I've seen Jenny comment on here. Let's have a look. No. So there we go. I thought there was another song. Oh, it was the I Put a Spell on You song, wasn't it, that Merlin shared. So there we are. Those were, well, they were kind of 2 and a bit, weren't they, really? Because I still need to do Darcy properly for Penny. I think that was all the questions. I'm aware of time. Thank you so much for joining me. The offer that I mentioned at the beginning of the call, what I have had my web guide do is create a code for anyone that would like to book a reading. There's now 20% off for the next 2 days. I appreciate things happen, so I didn't want to kind of give you 24 hours to book anything. But the code is SAVE20, so SAVE 20, and it's 20% off either a half an hour or an hour's call. You literally just go on the website, Equisentient Coaching, you can book a session from the banner, or you can go onto the /readings and you can book either option, and then I will come straight back to you and we'll start to get something in the diary. So I work mornings and evenings most days. Let me know, and obviously I'll kind of calendar and diarise you guys as soon as I can, according to who kind of comes in first. Barbara, fabulous as usual. Thank you, Barbara. It's so lovely to see familiar names and faces on there. I did spot yours as well, actually. That's the other thing. The reason I wanted to just kind of school through them quickly, it's just that seeing all those faces looking at you, it's really, really hard to make those choices, really. I should say, actually, that just reminded me, Poirot, actually, I had a kind of a nudge before I read for him that actually it wasn't enough for me to scan with my eyes closed, that I kind of had to take it on the chin and look through all the photos, because there was one in there that I had to pick. And I think that was what happened with Poirot. Yes, so Suzanne, such a lovely experience, love hearing their lives. I know, it's just incredible, isn't it, what they share. And I agree with Merlin, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. So thank you very, very much for joining me this evening, for your interest and for your love, no doubt, of your own horses and how you care for them. I will share one more tiny thing because I feel compelled to do so. So yesterday, before I did the read-ins with them, I could hear. Do you know that the Mary Poppins song, "Feed the Birds, Tuppence a piece or a bag," I think it is. And I was like, I wonder why that's popped into my head. And I thought, oh, I'll look up the lyrics after I've connected with them. But I was like, I'm in the zone. I'm going to stay with them. I won't get onto social media or anything or Google. And then when I looked at the lyrics, and by all means have a look at them, it was all about the fact that this lady kind of creates her little bags of crumbs, and then she's just encouraging people to feed the birds because their nests are empty or they've got young ones to feed. And it was all about the fact that she was just given of something, and that, you know, the apostles and the I guess the angels above were watching all the different ways in which people showed that they cared, and it made me think of I guess the love that everyone, and I imagine the people that are on the session, have for their horses. So what I wanted to do is, I felt like it was a nod to say thank you very much for all the different ways that you show your horses that you care, because I can tell you that they deeply, deeply appreciate it. Just the fact that you wanted to hear their voice and you kind of added them onto the call tonight, it will be appreciated. And that's something I didn't ask on the last live videos, but when I do private readings, the owners are always talking about the difference it makes to their relationship. So I'm really curious to see whether, from the ones that I've read for this evening, whether you see a change. So if you do over the coming days or weeks, please just pop back on the thread and let people know, or private message me. I just love keeping in touch. Okay, I'm going to say goodnight. Any other questions afterwards, by all means, feel free to message me and keep in touch. You can do on my newsletter or on my Facebook page. Okay, take care everyone. Thank you so much for joining me.